In this video, I'm going to show you how to retarget, in terms of retargeting, how to apply an animation onto a character's skeleton. More so it's controls, more specifically it's controls, so you don't have to apply to the skeleton itself. So basically what we're going to do is going to import the animation file, which is an FBX file. So basically this animation was captured using motion capture, so we're just going to do that first. So we're going to go to our file in our menu tab, go File, Import. We'll go to the little box here, check there. So basically the file type that we're importing right here is an FBX, so that's already clicked. For the referencing options, we don't want to preserve any references, so we'll check that. We are using namespaces, so we know how we're identifying the file. We scroll all the way down, and we have our Edit Preset button. So this is just to basically, in terms of creating those settings for the file that you're about to import. So if we have a preset, which is Viking Blade, animation is checked, and then as you go through you make sure that all of these other options are unchecked. Even the constraints, skeleton definition is set to human IK, and make sure the file content is set to add. So we're just adding animation files instead of like updating a current animation that's there, we're just adding it. So that's for that. So we just, once you set that, you hit close. Well, you save your preset if you haven't created that preset yet. So that's good. I think that's good. So next we'll just go to import, click the import button. Now we're going to just find our file. Since we're dealing with Victor's character right there, we're just going to import probably an FBX of him. A walking motion probably. So let's go find that file. Alright, so motion capture. He's probably in our second session. So down here we have Victor Walking 01, so we'll just open that up. Okay, so he is loaded. Right now we can't see him because I've hidden the visibility for the joint. So if you click joints right here, now we can see our animation. So if we just browse or scroll through the slider, we're able to start to see it, the joints animate. Here it's a bit slow, so we're just going to increase it up a bit, up that number. Okay, so now if we just scroll through the timeline, yes, now we see our animation. Now remember, what's happening here is that our animation is facing the opposite direction of the direction our character is facing. So it's important to make sure that our animation file and the rig is facing in the same direction as our character. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the group here, if you have your outliner opened, take the group here, and we're going to rotate it, I'm sure 90 degrees. Actually, not 90, negative minus 90. So there you go. Now it's facing our character. I just like to keep things a bit organized, so I'm going to rename this as our source character, kind of in a way, because that's our main animation. And next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to resize the character and fit it within the skeleton of our Victor character, just because when we apply the animation to the controls or we do the retargeting, we want to make sure more or less that the size of our mocap rig is the same as our character's rig, so that way the animation will be applied or transferred smoothly. So we're going to take this rig, we're going to resize it, scale it down a bit, a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to reposition my align this here, right here, just align that a bit to our hip, right? So what I've done is I've taken our pivot right here, and I've reset it to our hips. So I've moved and positioned it to our hips. What you normally do is you hit DV and you're able to realign that pivot. So we're going to take our character down a bit to where our other character is. And we're going to snap it, since this is snapped here to about the root area, we're going to snap it to the root area for a character as well. So we'll hit V, and we're going to snap it down here to where our character's own hip or root is located. So making sure that's snapped properly. Perfect. Next thing we do is we take our scale tool, and then again we're going to scale it down all the way down and making sure that it's around a rough, the rough size or the rough, proportions of our actual characters. So right now we're just scaling him down. Okay, well, not really to the hip as I thought it was, so we'll reset that to the hip area. There you go. Okay, now we'll just scale it out a bit. Let's go to our side view to make sure that's a bit scaled. So it's a bit too tall. Make sure, maybe the feet area, that's good. That's perfect. That seems fine. Okay. So that's good. Now we have it resized, and it's about, proportionally not the best, but at least it works for this case. So as you notice here, there are a bunch of locators, so it's really very actually highly recommended that you clean up your file. So you're going to have to delete all the locators, or essentially the markers that were captured from the mocap session, and delete them. So here we'll delete the cameras as well. We'll take our joints and we're going to move it out of that area so that we can delete these locators here. So yeah, now we have a very clean file, and if you scroll through it now, you have your animation. So now the most interesting part of this is to now do the retargeting, where you apply the animation from your mocap rig here to our actual we're not going to retarget the animation from the rig onto our character's rig. What we're going to do is apply it to our controls. So that way we don't have to go into the messy business of dealing with our joints and skeleton. So that I think is much more useful and saves a lot more time. So what we're going to do is if you're in your animation tab, you go to the skeleton menu, and we're going to go to human IK. So we'll open that up. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to define a skeleton, right? So we're going to click Define Skeleton, and we're going to start with our source skeleton that we have here, source character, which I called, and I'll shift open everything, so you get to see the hierarchy of the joints and how it makes up the skeleton. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click our character's hips, right? We'll go to our HIK, our definition, our skeleton's right here, and we're going to go to the hips area, right click, and hit Assign Selected Bone. So now it's selected the bone for that hip. So instead of having to assign for every part of the skeleton, an easier way to do it is using the I believe it's the Load Skeleton Definition option. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our outliner, select the hips, hit the Shift key, and select everything within that hierarchy. We'll go back to our HIK. We're going to click on this icon right here, and it gives our option for Load Skeleton Definition. So now that we selected all the joints, what we're basically going to click here is Match Only Selected Bones for what we've selected from our outliner, and we just hit OK. Now you can see everything has been assigned. Anything that's in orange, don't worry too much. It's just in terms of the orientation that Maya might have an issue with, but it's not that big a deal. Next thing now, the biggest step is now we're going to have to apply the controls to the skeleton, to our mocap skeleton. So what we're going to do is after we've assigned the joints and the bones, we're going to go to our controls tab. Oh, actually, no, sorry, excuse me. We're going to go to our little menu here. We're going to go to Define custom rig. So now we already built our custom rig, so we want to basically make sure that our controls correlate with this skeleton that we've assigned right here. So we go back to our custom rig here, and we're going to start assigning, assigning the controls to the areas where retargeting will occur. So we'll actually start with the feet. So the right foot. We'll then go to the area where we need to assign it, which is the right ankle. So we just right click, assign selected effector. There we go. We've assigned the right foot to the right ankle here. Then we'll go to the left foot here as well, assign that accordingly, assign selected effector. With the global control, we're not going to assign it to anything because there's nowhere to assign it, so we'll just leave the global control as is. As we move upward, we have our right knee control, assign that to the right knee here. You get this warning sign, the rotation attribute on the destination node, and the new mapping is locked. This is basically saying that because the mocap skeleton deals with the rotation attributes, we don't have rotation for knee control. Rather, we have the translate attributes. So it's not really a big issue, so we can ignore this. So we'll just click on ignore locked. And we go to the left knee control, assign selected effector, ignore lock there. And we go up a bit higher to our hips area, where we assign it right here as well to our hips. Go up to our chest, assign selected effector there. That's good. And then we can go to our elbows as well here. So with the right elbow, same as the knee, you'll get the same warning error, which we'll just ignore it. Assign it to our left. Remember that. Then we'll do our hands or our arm controls. So we'll do the right arm first. That's assigned. Let's do the left one. Okay. Then last but not least, we have our head control, which we just assign it here to the top. Assign selected effector. Good. So now we've basically established that connection between the custom rig and the mocap skeleton. So now that we have that custom rig created, we now need to, it might seem tedious, but we have to redefine the skeleton again. In order to now do the retargeting, we actually need to define the skeleton for the mocap rig again, because now we have the custom rig where we've established that relationship between the controls and the mocap skeleton. But now in order to do the retargeting, we need to define the skeleton for the mocap skeleton. So here we'll just click on our little menu again, go to define, and click on skeleton. Now we have our character too, so that's a new template. So now we're just going to reassign everything. We go back to our menu, shift open, so we get our hierarchy again. We'll click on the hips as we did the first time. Go in the hips area, right click, assign selected bone. Then we shift select everything, all our joints, and we go to our load skeleton definition, match only selected bones, and hit OK. So now we have our skeleton template there. So now we're going to do our retargeting. So our character is our custom rig, which is our actual character there. So we click on that. And the source where the retargeting is occurring from our source skeleton, which is our mocap skeleton, which is our character 2, which we have just created. So we click on that. So now this is how retargeting is done. So now we've successfully created that link. So now I'm sure our character can now animate. If we scroll through our timeline, you can see that it's been successfully retargeted. We're gonna just try and hide the joints just because it seems a bit too busy on the screen and we want to actually see it in action. So let's go to the side here and let's hit play to see how this works out. Yeah. So as you can see, it's been successfully retargeted. I mean, of course, there are little issues such as the elbows, you're not as bent, but you could always do that following, after you've baked the character and you've baked out the animation. You can always make those edits and those changes following that. But so far, the walk cycle seems great. If we go back to it, the walk cycle seems great. The head control, the position of the head, and the chest and the hips, they seem perfect there. So the only thing, probably later on after you've baked the animation, just fixing the elbows here because they seem slightly a bit straight. So that's the only thing that could need tweaking, the arm controls. So now that we have successfully retargeted our animation, the only thing left to do is to bake our animation from our mocap skeleton onto our controls. So we're not baking it on our mesh. Right here, we're not baking in our mesh. We're essentially just baking it on these controls that you see here. So what we're going to do next is we're going to hide our polygon mesh because let's say we want to select, we don't want to have that in the way. So we'll hide our polygon if you click here. So now we have our controls, which is what we want. So what next thing we're going to do in order to bake the animation is we're going to go to our menu tab here, click on edit, and we are going to go to keys, go all the way to the bottom, bake simulation, click on the little checkbox right here, right click there. So now we have our hierarchy. Selected means like what we're selecting. So essentially we're selecting these controls that we want baked. So we're going to select these controls, select all of them. That's good. We go down here. Normally you could play out by the time slider, like baking, like in terms of how long you want to, like in length of the animation. You can use the time slider, you can use the start end. I would like to use the start end. I just find it more, much more accurate in terms of determining when the animation, when it starts and when it ends. So if you click in your outliner on your mocap skeleton and you scroll down, just move around and see, okay, where does it kind of end? It's around like 625, 624, around that length. And if you go back here in your bake simulation options, it seems I've already set it, so that's 625. You're baking it to the base animation, sample 1, so everything else here is all good. You don't need to change anything there. So now that I'll just select the controls again, just like that. And so you're comfortable with the retargeting and how it's been set. Once that's done, all you need to do is hit the button bake. And we just wait for the animation to bake onto our controls. Okay, good. That didn't take long. So now the animation has been successfully applied to our controls. So if you click on your controls here, you can see in your timeline the different keys that are there. So that basically lets you know that the animation sequence has been applied to each set of the controls. So if you wanted to make changes to certain controls or certain areas, you could always go to the timeline and do that effectively. So that's a great way of controlling the animation. Now we'll just put back our polygon so we see our character in action. And so now that we've baked everything, we essentially don't need our mocap skeleton anymore because it's all been baked. Unless you want to update the animation, which in terms you would need to go back to, if you wanted to update it, you would need to go back to File, Import here. And preserve, check that off as usual. But if you wanted to import your animation instead of just adding an animation, in your edit preset, just simply switch, which I've already done, from add to add an update animation, which in essence what it does is it doesn't add a new mocap skeleton, it just recognizes your skeleton and just updates the animation file itself, or the animation in itself and not the skeleton. So that's one way of changing up without having to go through this whole entire process of assigning things. Once you have your custom rig assigned, once you have your mocap skeleton assigned to its mocap skeleton assigned, yeah, you don't need to go through this whole process again. So now that, like I said, we've had everything baked and it's all good, we can delete this right here. We don't need it anymore, so we just hit delete. So all we have left is our baked animation onto our character, and we can now like hit play. So now, let's see that, and everything seems good. Yeah. So that is essentially how you would do your retargeting. And that's it.